One of the reasons that the world is in so much chaos and unrest is because of the issue of people always reaching for a new high, every day of their lives. And what I've come to realize is that it's not about the highs that we are told or made to pursue, but it's about the lows you experience in life. To explain this a little bit deeper, you know, people usually have something they're always trying to acquire, some type of goal, some type of notion they have to, look forward to in order to make their lives feel purposeful. So if it's anything from a new job, a new car, a new outfit, new hairdo, whatsoever it may be, these are temporary highs or fixes that people use to bring some sort of purpose into their lives because they hadn't been taught of their ultimate spiritual nature. And when I say ultimate spiritual nature, I'm getting into the esoteric science of the soul, being that the soul is of a divine origin. And while it's here on its physical plane, it's actually in a captive or imprisoned state, being that, we're trapped on the earth in the physical body, and we have to ascend at one point or another in our lives, being that we are fallen gods. When you look at a lot of the mythologies, it's always talking about this fallen hero or this god that was thrown, out of the heavens and, cast into the depths, of the earth, or hell, which is hell is synonymous to the earth. And all of those stories have to do with actual humans and our specific situation. Being that the soul is a part of the all, is divine in origin, that means that we're actually the gods that were cast down into a physical manifestation. So when you don't realize that and you don't understand the ultimate end game or goal that does need to be acquired in the daily life, you particularly tend to not understand what your true purpose is, and thus you cling to artificial, things in life. Like I just stated earlier, whatever we can cling to give ourselves some type of purpose, some sort of temporary high or fix. And there's many instances of this, like I said, in mythology, to where we can see that the soul of man is actually of a higher nature, or is the God within him that needs to be released. Even in the Bible, Jesus tells the disciples that, doesn't it say in your law that ye are gods? And that even goes back to an earlier time frame of civilization, when the Egyptians said that, man, know thyself and you will know the gods. That was indicative of the soul which resides in us, that divine spark is of the creator. So if it is of the creator, then we are actually God, in a physical body. All of those energies, qualities, and characteristics, they attributed, to God, which was the unseen. Those were all energies inside of man. And until he learned himself, he would not learn of his true origin or of his divine nature, which he is God. So people, to get back to the point I was stating, when we cling to those, things in life which have no real substance, or is a way for us to remain encased or entrapped into this matrix, we stay on these temporary highs. And when these things don't pan out or give us the satisfaction or answer those questions that we have about our true nature, when it doesn't answer those things and all fails, we fall into these lows. And being that we're not properly educated spiritually about what these lows are, a lot of people tend to, fall into to mental depression. Some people have, pre-existing conditions, which that makes it arise. And some people even go to the extent of committing suicide because they think that life is supposed to be this grandiose existence that is supposed to be enjoyed, on a regular basis. And there's not supposed to be any trial and tribulation. Or if I work hard, if I get the American dream, of a good job, home, nice car, whatsoever. I won't have to be like all of the other people out here that don't have anything, to brag about or, base their existence on. But what they don't realize is that it's not about the high that you're on, because that's only temporary. That can cease or be non-existent at any time. What it's really about, as far as a soul or spiritual evolution, are the lows that you experience. And when I say lows, it's being in those positions to where you have to question your purpose in nature, not only as a human, but as a soul being. If you notice, it's not until most of us are in our most desperate state, or, times of despair, that we fully recognize our true potential, or that we really evolve to become the spiritual being that we're supposed to be. And that's because we're able to sit more quietly, because we don't have those things to distract us. We're able to sit quietly amongst ourselves and ponder, what it is that we're supposed to be doing. What's the goal? What is the real goal? What is my true purpose? Those old philosophical questions that a lot of people say you can't answer, but in fact you can answer if we were to reside in that silence again. As a lot of spiritual texts and schools will tell you, it's not until you're in that silence that you're able to speak to your higher self, your soul, or what some may call the creator. When you're focused on, all of these highs and all of these aspects of materialism, you're being distracted. And that's why a lot of people, it's hard for them to live with themselves or to reside in silence. They always have to be surrounded by noise and, the craziness of society and what society is saying, and, all of the highs of society. And they can't live with themselves. There's a show on TV that I usually watch. It's called Naked and Afraid, to where, these people get sent into, desolate places in the jungle, the rainforest, or different parts of, country where it's real hard to survive. And, they're put out there for a couple of weeks, and they have to really, thug it out. Basically, they have to learn how to, make their own fire, catch their own food, protect themselves against the harshness of the natural environment. And, a lot of people, they're able to handle that to an extent or to a degree, and able to make it out of there based on the survival. But also, what I come to learn when I watch the show is that a lot of the people that fall or drop out, of the test, or being put out there in desolate locations, the main reason that they fail or can't make it is because they're unable to handle the mental stress of living with themselves and being alone. And that's a tragedy unto its own, because like I said, it's not until you're in the silence of yourself, the silence of your mind, that you really begin to know yourself. Like I said earlier, the Egyptians said, know thyself and you will know the gods. But people don't want to live with themselves. They don't want to have to listen to those voices, or, reside in that silence. They don't want to have to deal with their own demons, basically. And so they basically give up, and they have to run back into the world in order for the world to acknowledge who they're supposed to be or what their purpose is, when the only person that's supposed to be doing that is you. And like I said, that basically goes into say that we shouldn't always, if we're of a divine origin, if we are God in the physical manifestation, what we do on the physical has little to nothing to do with our actual return to being the gods, return to Mount Olympus, return to Valhalla, return to heaven, whatever you want to define it as. The things that we attribute success to, or what it means to have a purposeful life, actually puts us in a state of complacency, and we neglect our spiritual duties. And there's a Aboriginal quote out there that I used to love, posted on Facebook when I was on there a few years ago. And it says something to the degree of, and I'm paraphrasing that, We are all visitors here, and our main duty or job is to learn, observe, and then return back home. And when you really ponder on that speaks volumes about what human existence is supposed to be encompassed of. It's not to be uh, uh, enjoying it so much as we want to remain here, we want to remain entrapped or stuck here, and that's an agenda of the elite, is to sabotage us from understanding our higher purpose and make us fall in love with this lower level of existence, and therefore continue to reincarnate into it in order to be the powerhouse for its existence. Because if we were to understand, our true nature and what we must do, we'll eventually evolve, and there'll be no basically battery, for the elite to operate, this lower realm. It's almost like a prison. You don't A lot of people go to prison and they get these little jobs inside the prison, being a janitor, a cook, anything in that degree. And you don't go to jail, get the job, and say, oh, well, I finally found a purpose in my life. I'm a cook, in a correctional facility. No, you're still, what they don't realize is that you're still on lockdown, and your purpose has been assigned to you by someone who wants you to remain on lockdown in order to benefit off of your incarceration. And it's just like that, outside of the prison, as far as the physical world is concerned. They distract us. They give us these grandiose titles. They give us this money, new TV, new phones, like I said, temporary highs. And we allow that to define us. But what we don't realize is that this is not my purpose. This is not what I'm here for. I'm not here to sport the newest fashion or have the best car or have the biggest title or the best degree. I'm here to learn, observe, and return back home as far as the spiritual nature is concerned, and returning back to my God essence. So that all goes into say that, a lot of people, they don't know how to handle the lows. The lows are like the arising of the phoenix. When the phoenix is all grandiose in its looks and attributes, it's not until it dematerializes and turns into ashes that at that lower point true potential is once again raised, and the phoenix is born again from the ashes. So it's not until, we deal with our lows and be able to know who we are that we recognize our true potential and use that to arise a new being. But you don't worry about what the grandiose effect is. When you look all around the world, a lot of the mental illness that we see in America and other countries that's on a higher standard of living, a lot of what you would call primitive tribes around the world, they don't deal with those same issues. They don't deal with high suicide rates. They don't deal with, violence in the community or fighting or people stabbing each other in the back. And that's because they have a real strict spiritual guideline. They understand why they're here, and they know that it's only temporary. So they don't find their purpose or place in the world, because they already know what it is based on a spiritual nature. And that's why the Bible tells us that, be in the world, but not of the world. And a lot of people don't understand that, being that means, don't find yourself as far as what the world determines or defines that you are. Just be of the world. Just be in the world, I'm sorry, because you're already a spiritual being that was created before the world was ever here. So how are you going to come as a pre-existing aspect, and you come down to this place that was created after, and then let that define you? So we have to recognize our purpose here and understand that it's good to actually be in low positions in our life. Like I said, that actually helps us to recognize our true nature and where we are to go from there.